Well, hi there. You're listening to Podcast is Broken, a podcast where we try to make Canadian news fun-er or funnest. It might be funnest because I think we're number 2 in news in Apple Podcasts. Anyway, my name's Brittlestar.
My name's Steve Boots.
My name's Lisa.
And guest? No, there's no guest this week. That was just to psych out the people who are just listening.
Everybody leaned in. Everybody's leaning into that. Yeah.
Although
Who's it gonna be?
do think it's notable that we did chart in the Netherlands. We hit 123 in politics in the Netherlands. So bust out the stroopwafel, folks.
Hey, I've got tulips in the background. I am celebrating.
That's really nice. That's really good. Yeah. I've got clogs on, so that's good.
There you go.
I'm also wearing wooden underpants, but that's more just a weekend thing for me.
Thank you to our friends, yes.
Yeah, it was very exciting. We did very well. We had a great episode last week with Nahid Nenshi, and it was very entertaining. It was very good.
Now we know how to say his name.
We do. I do have to tell you, though, I did listen to his podcast with Jen Arden, and listen, a lot of the same material. So listen, if you're going to buy tickets to one of his podcast guest spots, once you've seen one, you might have seen them all.
We should just do a group one next time, and then just everybody save their day.
Exactly. Just get us all in a room.
Yeah. We're just going to do one big collectivized podcast.
That's fine. That's all anyone needs,
That's
isn't
a
it?
Canadian
Really?
thing to do. We share, right?
Yeah,
we share.
exactly. You guys have been good? You guys have been fine?
Yeah, it's
Living
a good
my
week. It's
best
busy.
life.
Yeah.
I've rebuilt my office. I have something to show off. Observe. You won't be able to see this at home if you're listening.
I'll describe
if
it.
you're watching. Bye.
The camera's going up. It's panning over. It's like I think his chair might just be going down.
I think it's.
I like the idea of his chair just going down
into
instead.
a
It
hole.
is. It just does. It's like, bye, Steve.
Oh, look at that. He's got a whole bunch of
See, all my comic books are
He's
now
got all
revealed.
man-child
Yeah.
stuff.
And that is a signed image of a pro wrestler.
That's fabulous.
Bring it back up.
It is time to accept your own mortality, though, Steve. It's you
As
can't
I
hang on to
sink
the past.
into a pit down here. How about
that's
you,
lovely.
Stuart? How's things?
Oh, things are good. Listen, I got to tell you guys. Today, I told you I couldn't record earlier because I was at the annual Swan Parade.
Oh yes,
And
I
that
have
was-
such
that was-
fun questions.
And I was mentioning this to my eldest son Owen, and he said, "Did you explain it?" I was like, "No, I left it cryptic. I wanted to be as mystery as possible."
And
we just assumed
accepted
that
it.
we assumed it was dad texting. You're like, I'm busy. Swan Parade.
Swan Parade,
No follow-up details.
Swan Parade, exactly.
See you later.
I've got a short clip from the Swan Parade from today. I can play for you guys if you want. If you want to
Yes,
see
please.
I
it.
would love
Yes,
to.
please.
Here goes. Ready? So I'll try to describe it for the listeners at home. There's a pipe band. I'm
A lot
standing
of people
behind a
holding up
man.
their phones.
Yeah, a lot of people holding up their
Looks like a
phones
concert.
to capture this
Including
moment
Stuart.
forever. I'm holding up my phone. I'm blocking the view of a child behind me. Here they come.
I really
There's-
do think they should
It's
probably write a few new
swans!
songs for
Yes.
bagpipe.
Yes, it's swans.
Oh my God, they're actual swans.
Yes,
They're just hiking swans down the
They're
street.
just walking down the road.
they're parading. There they go. So now there's a group of swans parading down the street. They're being protected by people in high-vis vests. There's throngs of tourists, all taking pictures.
People running
And
to
the
the
crowd
swans.
closes in behind them.
Exactly. To really motivate those swans to get the mayhem. There you go.
I love it. Oh my God.
There you go. There you go. You never
Infinite
heard that.
questions.
No, please ask away.
Are these famous swans? Should I know these?
Are these swans
Like
notable
academically?
in some way?
Well, are they they have entourage? Like, who are these swans?
They had
Well,
security.
They have. So Stratford has a bunch of swans, and they will breed, and then they get rid of some, and then some die, and then they keep a bunch, and it keeps on going. I think there was about 9 this year.
Like nature.
I have
Even
questions
like nature, yeah, circle
about
of life.
the get rid of some that you glossed right over there.
Yeah, keep asking questions, Steve. Go. I know the parks manager here.
We're
Okay?
going to continue glossing is what we're going
Stuart's
to do.
gonna get a button for your desk and put you all the way down.
Exactly.
Okay, so my
that-
question is,
yeah.
how do they initially congregate the swans?
For the parade?
Yeah, because
Just
like,
shoo,
well,
shoo, shoo, shoo.
did they just happen to be hanging out and they were like, you know what?
oh my
Pipe
God,
band's
again?
Here, the swans are here.
So it all happens because the swans do not winter in the lake. It's too cold for swans to winter in the lake.
Right.
And they drain the lake, and so there's very little water in the lake left over winter. So they go to the swan enclosure, which is an enclosure that's been around for, I'd say about 60 years, roughly. And it's been modernized. I mean, I don't know if they have like streaming and stuff like that yet, but they probably do.
Wi-Fi.
Swan cam.
It's a time for inflection, sort of, inflection, not inflection. What's introspection? That's what the word I'm thinking of. So they're all in one spot, and then they're quite keen to get out there because they got to go out on the lake. They cruise around together at first, and then they all go and find places to build nests, and then they all shack up with a partner.
Does the whole parade implode if one of them figures out they could just fly?
Well, their wings are clipped. Much like many residents of Stratford, our wings are clipped.
They can never leave.
Exactly. Justin Bieber is the only one that's been able to make it out.
Right after that, they started clipping everybody.
Exactly.
So these swans are being held against their will, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, they come to accept. It's like a Stockholm syndrome. We call it Stratford syndrome. And once you've been here long enough, you're like, you know what? It's not so bad.
It could be worse.
It could be worse. Could be a lot worse.
They start quoting Shakespeare. It's a whole thing.
Exactly. So they're all out at the lake, and they're all going to have a good time. And it was a lovely day because there's been days before where it's been like snowstorm blowing, and they're like, the city's like, we've chosen this day. It's happening. Get out there.
This is the swans' day, damn it.
Yeah. And they'll send them. I've seen days before where they've sent them out, and they've just like the swans have like stepped onto the lake and like just walked because it was frozen still. Not like big frozen.
Is the pipe band a new development, or is it always included a pipe band?
I think you'll find in most swan parades around the world a pipe band's involved.
It's pageantry, Steve. Hello. They can't just walk with no piping.
Exactly.
I was a fool to even think.
Exactly. All right, let's get back on track. People are tuning in going, this is number 2 in politics?
Swan parades?
I mean, to be fair, though, let me tell you one last thing about the Swan Parade that is political. It's very political. Okay? For decades, the Swan Parade the security at the Swan Parade was one yellow rope on either side of the road. Okay? It would be laid on the ground, and everyone would be like, don't mess with the rope. You walk up to the rope, you stay by the rope. If you've stepped over the rope, you've stepped too far. Step the hell back. Get behind the rope.
Literally crossed a line.
Exactly. And you would stand behind the rope, and then before they brought the swans down, it would be manned by a bunch of Boy Scouts, and their leader guy would be like, hey, kids, rope up. And the kids would bend down, they'd bring the rope up, and everyone would adhere to the rope. No one would push past. It's chaos now. They got rid of the rope. I say, bring back the rope, and I won't rest until the entire city council and mayor are thrown out unless they bring back the rope.
You know someone's going to clip that, eh? Bring back the rope. There goes our standing in the Netherlands.
There it's... Are they big on swans?
We had a good run, folks.
Yeah. Speaking of...
you say swan parades around the world as if this is a thing that happens elsewhere. Is it or no?
I mean, not nearly to the grandeur of the Stratford, Ontario, Canada Swan Parade.
He's screwing with me, right? We agree?
Lisa's
One
looking
would
it up.
never know. One would never know.
Lisa's got Google. I've heard that she's got Google, and she's.
We have that in the West.
Do you have that now?
Yep.
Up there?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you see any other
we
Swan
just
Parades?
recently moved off of
dial-up.
Ask Jeeves.
That's Jeeves. Okay, Stratford comes up first.
Mm-hmm. Seems right.
Stratford.
Yeah, seems right.
Yeah, it's pretty much just Stratford.
Yeah. So when I say in the
So
world,
when you swan parades around the world, you mean this one specifically?
We're pretty municipal centric here, and
Covers the whole thing.
it covers the whole thing.
It's a
fine.
tourist attraction. It's the only one in the world.
Exactly. There was, honest to God, there were about, I'm going to guess about 2,500, 3,000 people there today, at least.
It
is
looked it from
mayhem.
your video. Like it was
Yeah.
a bit scary. When the
It
swans,
was a bit scary.
when the swans had moved on and the crowd sort of enveloped, it was
Yeah. But
Like
you know
you
what?
said, mayhem.
Swans, no. They don't. They're like, no one's messing with us. Get out of here. I flap my wings once, you guys will
They fear
scatter.
nothing.
Yeah.
they've got their goose cousins waiting in the background.
Exactly, in the
If anybody
background.
gets rowdy.
Brass
Bit of-
knuckles on.
Bit of rough in the background.
Everybody.
All right, let's
that's
get on
the
to what
show,
we talk
folks.
about.
Thanks
That's it.
for
Thank you for
tuning in.
listening. Exactly.
This has been a slice, everybody.
So let's talk about some actual political things. There's been a couple of interesting things that we're going to hit on today. The first of which was recently, this past week, the thing known as Alex Jones endorsed Pierre Poilievre. And a lot of people were, I want to say, kind of upset about that. I guess a little bit upset. A lot of people thought it was funny. I thought it was funny to me. But it's also a little bit of a red flag, I guess, for people too. I mean, what's our take? What does it matter if someone endorses you? Because you can't control that. You can't control that at all.
Can't you though? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I liked it better when he was banned from all social media. But alas, thanks, Elon. There's got to be conversations in the background there. There has to be.
You think so?
Well, because he said he's been supporting Pierre for decades, which who the hell, we didn't know who Pierre was. How the hell did he know who Pierre was decades ago? So I don't know. It seems off to me a little bit.
I think it's less of a case of coordination and more of a case of ideological alignment.
Sure.
Right? There's this sort of like libertarian podcaster verse out there that is...
Are we part of that? We're not part of that, are we? I don't want to make sure we haven't drifted into that part of town.
Ideologically incoherent. Just roll with it. But like there is this sort of libertarian podcaster verse, sort of like not just Joe Rogan, but like Rogan and Alex Jones and this very libertarian-minded sort of part of podcastria. Mm-hmm. And so I really do think it's less of a case of coordination and more just a case of like they see a guy who is saying a lot of the ideological talking points that they agree with. Maybe not necessarily about like they're making the frogs gay or whatever else it is that Alex Jones talks about, but more about sort of libertarian politics.
Right.
And so they'll just chase after whoever is espousing that.
But I would have thought, having seen a lot of Mr. Jones's material, we'll say, that Bernier would have been the guy, right? But strategically, Bernier's not in the running.
No.
And so he's doing the thing that I think a lot of people are doing. We don't like Trudeau, so we're going to support Poilievre.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you're right. Ideologically, obviously, Maxime Bernier is the guy that would be most aligned with Alex Jones. But I think Alex Jones his whole shtick is, it's less about ideology and it's more just about money. I think it's more about making money and what he can sell. And I mean, much like all of us, certainly like me. However, I'm trying not to be evil about it.
We are going to roll out our new supplement line immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's essential oils and vinegars.
Take these sarcasm pills.
Straight on bread. I don't know. I think like there's so much insincerity and just sort of hollow, just posturing behind a lot of this stuff. There's not a lot of thought. There's not a lot of belief behind it. And so I think when they see somebody who they feel like is close to them ideologically, who they think has a real crack at power, they'll just kind of glom onto them and take it as far as they can.
The best part were the comments. I went and looked at the comments on Alex Jones's retweet.
From Alex Jones followers?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny because it mimics, if we moved it over to the left, it mimics what happens on the left. So everybody that was, oh, but Pierre is so great. In his comments were like, Pierre is WEF. Pierre is
interesting.
WHO. Oh, yeah. No, you need to go and see that because everything just shifts over, right? Some people were like, oh, yeah, Pierre's going to save us. But a lot of people, I think, were of that ideology were a little bit disappointed in Mr. Jones.
That kind of makes me feel better in a weird way. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, he's maybe not that bad. No, you don't know he's that bad, but he's not that bad. Is that a safe thing to say?
Poilievre or Jones?
Poilievre.
Okay, I was like, Jones is absolutely that bad.
All the bad.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like
all of the
I'm
bad.
not a fan. I'm not a fan.
Been proven in court.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just been proven by watching.
And one of the interesting posts I saw online was Laurie Goldstein from the Toronto Sun, and Laurie and I do not see eye to eye all the time, but occasionally he'll retweet my videos, and for that reason I think he's great, because I can be bought.
On the cheap, as it appears.
Laurie has some good points every now and then. He pointed out, I think yesterday, that he said this, to think that Poilievre's okay with, I'm paraphrasing here, Poilievre's okay with Alex Jones' endorsement, and that's an accurate alignment, is the same as when people say, well, Hamas is aligned with Trudeau. It's like, well, obviously not.
No.
I mean, that, you know.
That's a tricky case because, like, Hamas in that situation didn't directly endorse Trudeau. They endorsed a thing that Trudeau did where it was funding the UNRWA.
Right.
So I don't know.
It's less about he's our guy. It's less about
exactly.
that.
It's apples and oranges, I think.
Right.
In that,
apples.
like...
Sorry.
But yeah, I think Laurie's not necessarily wrong there, but I think it's sort of it's a comparison that doesn't align in my view.
I mean, there must be times, like certainly it's happened to me, where I'll have someone who is supportive of me, or even a much less horrible example, much more nice example is like when someone I don't agree with normally, like Warren Kinsella or Laurie Goldstein or something, retweets me, and I think, okay, we're not in the same team based on everything else on the planet, but I don't feel like that's defining me, and it must happen to you guys too, does it?
Oh, this is such a complicated thing because I think you're pointing at the heart of a big problem in politics right now, which is if I disagree with you sometimes, I can never agree with you. And
yeah.
I think people get stuck on that a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's very much like I remember back in the George W. days, it's very much of the line from The Phantom Menace or whatever it was from, one of the prequel movies where it's where Obi-Wan Kenobi says, you're either with us or against us, essentially.
Right.
And that mentality is never good.
No, it's black and white, and we live in gray, right?
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to people who reach. I shouldn't say that. That's dismissive. I don't always catch the people that retweet me or quote me, right? So,
Sure.
But I mean, there's not playing on the same team and sharing information, and then there's not even in the game. And so when I'm looking at Jones and Poilievre, it seems so out of left field.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, like, what's happening behind the scenes there in either camp. Who knows?
And the response wasn't even really a disavowal. The response from the Conservatives was basically like, we don't know who this guy is.
It was
like,
so milquetoast. It was so funny.
Absolutely nobody believes you.
No,
if
whoever
you are
this
even
person, whoever this
tangentially
individual
aware
is,
of politics.
it's like, what? That's worse. That's a worse statement to make.
Yes.
That's like saying we have no even basic idea of who our base listens to.
I mean, that seemed too calculated to me when they wrote back, and the statement was essentially, we don't know this, we don't agree with this person's views, and we don't even know who this person is, essentially is what they were saying.
They may well just have posted the, like, shoulder shrug emoji, like it was the same thing,
This
right?
is kind of nothing.
But that seemed calculated to me, because it was like, as someone had said, I think Rachel Gilmore had said, what is the guy, Voldemort? Like, can we not say his name? Is that the idea? And I thought it was calculated because I thought the reason they're not using his name in the statement is because it will get picked up. It'll be indexed, and people search for that, and they'll be like CPC or Poilievre and Alex Jones, and it'll get picked up for that. So they don't want to rock the boat. That's how it read to me, and I might be wrong, but that's how it read to me, is that they don't want to rock the boat for the people who are like, well, I kind of like Alex Jones.
It's so strategic. They know that the political life cycle of this sort of story is really short.
Sure.
But the memories of the people who actually care about it are long.
Yeah.
So they'll get that endorsement. They'll score the points. The people who support Jones will, in a lot of cases at least, give a hard look to Poilievre. And for the rest of us, it'll blow over in a couple days. And they know that. So they say some milquetoast statement to make it go away and just wait it out, basically.
I guess.
Yeah, it's distressing to me because it's so much, to me. It's similar to my feelings about Trump. It's that idea of you give the benefit of the doubt, and after a while, I'm thinking, I think we're giving too much benefit of the doubt here. I think because there's lots of times, I think, for real, and that's how people can rationalize this stuff. Is things will happen, red flags will come up, and you'll be like, yeah, but let's not assume that means the worst. Let's not go crazy here. Everyone take a breath and move on. And then it happens again. You're like, yeah, okay, but that's just maybe a coincidence that it happened again. But it gets to a point where you're like, is this okay? Are we being really stupid here? Are we being super dumb? It's like it's been in front of our face this whole time. But again, I'm so happy to hear that he got a hard time in the comments of Alex Jones's post.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some videos and quotes from people, and so I went down the rabbit hole again because it's been a while, right? Of all the absurdity and just dangerous statements that he's made over the years. And I continue to be baffled as to how people can be like, yeah, gay frogs. Yeah, that totally makes sense, right? Like, I don't understand it. So, but if people are saying to Mr. Jones that he's wrong in supporting Poilievre because that's not the guy, then there's still the populace that will support Bernier, even though we know that's not the guy, right? So as to the right as we think Poilievre is, and then there's the alt-right, which is where I would put Alex Jones, there's like Bernier, like way over.
Sure.
So.
You're right, but also to some degree, the alt-right loves to play for the winning team. And so if they think Poilievre's got a shot, they'll just sort of fall into line, I'd suspect. But I think the other thing that's sort of notable here is the way that my train of thought just derailed in the middle of my sentence there. Holy smokes, that's not happened to me
I
in a
blame
minute.
your new chair.
Oh, yeah, it's clearly the chair.
Yeah.
We were talking about Poilievre. We were talking about him being a butt.
Someone in the comments yeah, this was totally worth subscribing to.
Right? I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
That absolutely just flew off the rails.
No, you're
comes
talking
of age.
about because Poilievre is the one that has a chance, so they'll glam onto him.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
it.
they'll
They're
choose
just it's about in groups and out groups. It's about front runners. It's about just falling in with the team you think is going to advance your ideas the most. And right now, their idea is singular. It is F. Trudeau.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hate that that idea that there's friends that we have who have been kind of leaning to the we can't vote for Trudeau again because we're really sick of him. I don't think there's anything behind why they're choosing that apart from they're sick of them. It's like the stakes are too high, guys. This is not just a jump slightly to the right. This is like or slightly a bit more right of center. This seems like it's quite a bit of a serious jump between, we're talking about, some members of the Conservative Party looking at the Roe versus Wade thing in the States and going, yeah, maybe, yeah, it might be good. And that's really scary to me, I think, when you see that kind of thing. I think also like what is most terrifying to me is that in keeping thinking of our friends who are otherwise quite left, who are, I don't think that they would necessarily vote for the Conservative Party. They may, and we have the Conservative Party MP where I'm from is a nice guy. He's a super nice guy. He met with this. I remember, I've done a couple of videos for him where he's met with the constituents and they're trying to do stuff with social media, and I've sent little messages and stuff like that. And it's great. I'm happy to do that. That's the part of government that should be happening. That's the good stuff. So he's not a problem on its own. But
they're
the party
all in
itself,
my province. Most of them are in my province.
Right.
So
but I think I was going to say just to finish off the thought is that, so I don't forget it like you, old man. Steve just gave me whoa. Gave me an old timey face.
I did nothing of the sort. Sorry, I'll just start talking like this now.
Transatlantic. But I was going to say that I think most people in the general public don't have time to dissect this stuff, and they still think that conspiracies are just fun. They're just like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Sure. If it's not affecting them directly right now, immediately, they don't care at all. And that's distressing to me.
Yes.
So I have a question for you about your constituency. You see, you said that you're a Conservative member of Parliament.
Wow, that was good radio drama stuff.
Really?
God, no wonder we're number 153 in the
We're going to have a
Netherlands.
theme, next week's theme. Okay.
The next week's theme will be tulips for obvious reasons. But no, I'm wondering, you say that your constituency is conservative, and so I'm in a conservative constituency as well, and the person's not necessarily a bad guy either, person to person. But if they're a part of the problem in a lot of significant ways, they can be nice person to person, but their actions have significant policy impacts on people's lives. If you have a sincerely held belief that some of those policies that they hold are harmful, how do you reconcile that How do you wrap your head around, like, they seem like a decent guy, but also they vote for horrible things?
A 6-figure salary.
Yeah, I know. And look, in the last election, I remember there was a couple of people that were running who I was like, everyone should realize that this person is stepping into a $186,000 a year job. That's a lot of money. That's not your rich money, but that's your doing all right money.
Plus an expense account, don't forget.
Plus an expense account, exactly, and all that kind of stuff, and all the benefits and stuff that goes with it. But yeah, it's difficult. But I think, like I said, as you mentioned, like, that you can have a local or regional MP who is a good person in general, but they're voting with this party, and that's the one part I don't like about the Canadian system, and I think the Canadian system is better than a lot. But it's difficult because it's like I've looked at the Liberal candidates, say, in previous elections here and went, well, I don't know. I don't know, man. And I've looked at the NDP and the Greens and went, no, definitely not. I don't think this person's capable of doing the job here for this particular, riding. And so you end up voting for someone, or you kind of hold your nose and vote for someone you don't think is going to be great for your riding, but is going to be the better party. It's very difficult, I think. It can be difficult. I don't think people think that much about it, to be honest.
But like you said, we're in crunch time now. Like this next election it's deciding the course that we're going to take. And one course is terrifying for things like human rights. The thing too that bothers me, and I know everybody gets caught up in it now with, Poilievre's town hall, whatever the hell they are, rallies. But because we don't know what we know his catchphrases, but we don't actually know policy, right? We don't know how he's going to accomplish any of these things. And so I feel like people are going to get scammed into being like, yeah, we hate Trudeau, and yeah, we hate the tax. And then if the Conservatives get in, then we sit and wait, and nobody has any answers for anything. And then in 4 years or 8 years, the Liberals will get back in, because that's just the cycle that we go into. But
sure,
it's dangerous. This election is dangerous. And it worries me.
I think you're getting to the heart of it. There's never an answer to the and then what, right? Like, axe the tax. Okay, then what? Like, we have international climate commitments. What are you going to do? Like, it's so many different things like that. Where like slash this, slash that, cut funding to everything. Then what?
Then
what?
What?
I think Stuart said it one week that Poilievre just wants to win. He just wants to be prime minister, right? And he'll figure it all out after that. And that's why it's scary. That's why I don't think they have any answers. So it's the axe the tax, no, we don't want to do any social programming for people. We want, put money back in their pockets, get them housing, but know how, right?
That's such a classic conservative line of thinking, though. It's not about getting the right policies. We got to get the right people in the right spots. Then everything will be okay. If we get the smartest guy in the room to be the prime minister, then it'll fix everything.
That's definitely not plausible.
But look at the room.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, the bar
is low. He's got to beat out Andrew Scheer. I mean,
yeah. There's some questions there for sure. I think I would maybe make an argument that it's not just simply a conservative way of thinking. I think it's very much a political mind way of thinking, of just wanting to win. And that's been my thought of recent days as well, is that idea of that, to me, Pierre Poilievre really wants to be prime minister, period. I think that Trudeau really wants to be the best prime minister you could ever imagine. I'm not saying he's going to be, but I think the motivation's very different.
Yes.
I think the idea is like, I want you to love me. I want you to love me. And I think Pierre is just thinking, I just want to win. I don't really care if you like me or not. I just want to get the office.
Trudeau reminds me, he's a teacher, and he reminds me of a very specific kind of teacher. And it's the one who, like, at the end of the year, usually schools will have like a little assembly,
right?
And they'll introduce the teachers one by one. And like, there's a little ego tied up to how loud your round of applause is. But there's always one teacher who needs it, who desperately needs that really loud. They're like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, that was me.
That's Trudeau. It's not that he wants to be the best prime minister ever. It's that he wants to be the most liked prime minister ever.
Yes. Yeah, that's the better wording. You're right. You're absolutely right. I totally agree. He wants to be the most liked prime minister. And I think
that goal went out the window like a while ago.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
guy's
most
got
liked prime minister
flags.
ever probably doesn't have a lot of anti-them flags flying around.
I did, as a quick tangent, I did read a couple of posts. And again, I think as a tangent to a tangent, conspiracy theories are fun. They used to just be fun. You'd buy, like we talked about Bat Boy and stuff and all kind of thing. You're like, oh, maybe there's something more to this world in my daily life than I can see. And it was kind of benign and it didn't really matter. But someone had posted and raised the issue of like, okay, well, there's flags. I think maybe, was it you, Lisa, that mentioned there was flags? Like there's flags. Mm-hmm. And there was Pierre for Prime Minister, Poilievre for Prime Minister flags almost at the same time. Like it was like, who's making these flags? Who's doing that?
These flag companies are making lots of money.
Gotta watch out for Big Flag.
Right. It's a big
But I mean,
pharma.
like, in all seriousness, because the F. Trudeau flags are lovely quality. If you're looking for a flag
they're
maker,
not cheap.
they're
Yeah.
lovely quality.
There's a stranger one that happens out here in Saskatchewan because there's like just lots of open space. When you're driving to like Saskatoon or something, you'll drive past a farmer's field that has like an abandoned shipping container or not semi, like trailer sitting in the field with a giant like F. Trudeau, or like there's one about abortion rights in between Regina and Saskatoon. There's just like trailers,
Like a banner? They have a banner on the side of the trailer?
trailer-sized banners about like F. Trudeau, F. the carbon tax,
Right.
and it's like
Love your
you
baby.
have-
Like, yeah,
I would
yeah.
like to point out that you have enough money for a spare sign trailer. Like, I feel like you're doing okay. If you're struggling, you could probably sell the trailer.
It's in Alberta too, so don't feel like you're special. We have them too.
I mean, we have that kind of thing here, but it's usually just fireworks. Fireworks! That's it. Turn, next exit.
Yeah, I mean, what fun can you have if you're not making small things explode?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting to watch this whole thing. And I mean, I hope it was interesting. I saw a post by Frank Graves, who's Ecos Research, does the polls and stuff. And he has, as he will tell you first, never been wrong about predicting a federal election. Every election they predicted has been correct. And he said, interestingly, the other day, someone said, what are Poilievre's chances of winning the next election? And he said, as it stands currently, 50-50 and dropping. And that was very interesting. And I think that's my whole thing about this argument, not this argument, but this angle of rage baiting and being angry and presenting these slogans and doing so well at so many marketing aspects of what they're doing, but not having that other bit of substance. That it gives me a little bit of faith that there's maybe people when they go to the polls are going to be like, I'm not buying it. I don't feel it's not really worth it rolling the dice that much. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm entirely wrong.
It really seems like his support with his base is ironclad, but doing that seems to alienate a lot of people outside of it.
I would think so. I mean, how could it not?
I say we let the Swans decide. Like they do for the Super Bowl.
Swanocracy.
Well, they're all on the lake now.
Okay.
They're probably getting it on. So, mind you, it's probably just been one
Bam,
big swan
chicka,
party.
bam.
Well, that
man.
explains why there's no Swan Cam, or maybe that's just going to make them
That's
pick
extra.
up the pace
That's
on
a
Swan.
whole-
I think
yeah.
it used to just be
That's
municipally
paid for
run.
Swan
Yeah,
Paper Swan.
that's right. It's on new app
Only
called
Swans.
Only Swans, exactly. Don't steal my joke like that, Steve.
Sorry.
Damn it, I couldn't get it out fast enough. All right, let's move on to
There's
another.
still Swansley.
There's
Oh my God.
no.
Let's put him. Yeah.
Only Swans is the best joke. Only Swans
It
is
is.
the best one. Which is highly like just the idea of like, this is a good idea. Something really niche. That's what the internet's built for. Only Swans. Swan's doing the freakiest swan stuff you've ever imagined.
That would
All
be
for
Whatever you
someone
can
$79
think
a
of
month.
Swans doing. It's that.
It's that.
just flapping
And
little
worse.
wings. Okay. Anyway. Okay, let's
Anyway,
go down the.
extra get a shout out honk. Sorry. We're going to talk about AI because Steve, you had brought it. Not AI swans.
We're bringing out a new AI-based Swan.
Oh.
The Swan Cam
Yeah.
actually really just brought the budget right through the roof.
Well, the thing was, when you've got 9 swans, sometimes you're not in the mood, and so you got to get some AI swans action happening.
The
in there.
market demands it.
Exactly. You got to keep the people happy. So we're going to talk about AI because, Steve, as you had mentioned just prior to recording, that the Prime Minister has just announced $1 billion for AI stuff.
2.4 billion.
And what was the money going for?
It is going to provide access to computing capabilities and technical infrastructure.
To who? Whom?
God only knows.
Right. People.
People out there? Okay.
For now. And then it's going to be
Money
robots.
machine go.
Yeah. How do we feel about this? Because my immediate take is, yeah, I think we have to. I think we'd be idiots not to do something. I don't know if it's necessarily this particular plan is because sometimes that money can just kind of be shot out buckshot style and nothing happens with it.
Right.
And that's not good. However, I think we've been so slow as a nation to keep up technologically. Like, we should be a leader. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't be leading on this. Sweden is a leader in tech. Why aren't we a leader? Stupid Sweden is.
Hi, Sweden.
We'll never hit Sweden. All the people in the Netherlands are like,
yeah. Your cousin
that's right.
in the Netherlands is watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Netherlands are like, get them.
Here, watch. Like, Sweden's nowhere near as cool as Finland. See, there you go. Now we're in the charts.
Nice. All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's where I put on my big socialist hat.
Yeah.
My problem with this money isn't that it's going out there. I'm fine with that. Like, we are going into a world that is going to need tech infrastructure investment, because I don't think this is necessarily going directly to AI specifically. It's going to go to things like tech infrastructure, like supercomputing and things like that. Yeah. And so I'm fine with that. My problem is if the money keeps getting flipped to the private sector, how does the public get the return? So why not create a Crown Corp or do it through existing public services rather than flipping money to the private sector? Same with the battery plants. Why not have a battery manufacturing Crown Corp? Have the public keep the revenue instead of Stellantis or whoever else it may be.
Well, I think frustratingly, I think people would tell you that there's been decades of proof that the government's terrible at running things. And that's just a bureaucratically horrible nightmare.
And then they vote in terrible governments.
I know. I mean, it's self-fulfilling. We're not denying that. But I think that people would suggest there's no way that we're going to do that. I mean, there's one of the benefits, of course, and I'm not the man here. I'm just regular folk here. But I think one of the benefits of private, of course, is that you, as a private corporation or private company, you're just engaged in finding out how to make money. That's it. That's your only goal. So whatever it takes to make money. If I have to be faster, I'll get faster. If I have to be, better than the competition, I'll be better than the competition. That's your only goal. Whereas, government organizations are usually mandated. They're usually given very strict rules about what they can and can't do for the best interest of everybody. But in the same arena as other private organizations, I mean, that doesn't work. And I say this all too well, knowing that I despise for-profit healthcare. But I understand one of the big problems with healthcare in Ontario is at the governmental and provincial governmental and administrative level. It's not at the doctors and nurses. It's the level above. It's the people who are running the show, because they're not really concerned about profit. They're like, as long as I get paid really well. So that, I think that would be my first thing about the argument against that. But at the same time, I mean, you're right. The fact that I always think about social media platforms and think, it's like television networks in the 50s. We didn't just look at NBC in the U.S. and go, that's fine. We'll just put all of our shows on there. We'll just work with those guys to get our shows on the air. We said, no, we need to have CBC. We need to have CTV. We need to have Global. We need Canadian networks, because that's how it's going to protect our interests best, because we're going to have the best control of regulating them. And I think that's maybe what money would be better spent is in the infrastructure and just having a way that's going to be heavily regulated, like private but heavily regulated. That's my view.
So my question is, why doesn't Canada have public technological infrastructure instead of investing in private technological infrastructure for things like, supercomputing and, stuff like that, stuff like network capacity for these massive organizations? Why not make it a public infrastructure instead of this sort of privately held thing? Because it's essential to the functioning of a nation, really. So
they need to decide that it is, though, right? Because
this
a lot
is
of
what I'm
times
saying.
it's easier to cut the check and have somebody else have to deal with all the, the minutia of things, right? But then you can still say, look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing to advance.
That's the Trudeau way.
Well, you're welcome.
Check and wander away.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I
it's
gave
not
you enough
working,
money.
but it's all your fault.
Giving $20 to a toddler and sending them off to buy the groceries. What the hell did you buy? Gum?
Chocolate milk.
I gave you $20.
All the gum.
$20 is a staggering amount of gum. How did you carry this?
Just ignoring the fact that we're too stupid to do anything correctly, or to be trusted to follow through. I think you're right with the public infrastructure. I think that's integral, and I think that you look at places like California who are doing broadband and publicly, and it's like, yeah, you can't. It's ridiculous to think that we're going to step back from that. We're not going to step back from that. We need to have contingency plans and such for unforeseen events or whatever, weather events or whatever. But at the same time, you can't deny the fact that we're not stopping. Like, forums are just going to be more and more online. Stuff's going to be more online. Our lives are so interwoven into technology now that we need to make that as fair as possible. And when I think of places like like Nunavut and stuff, right, or Iqaluit, and I think, oh my God, like it's a lifeline. You need to have that up there so that they can remotely keep up with the rest of the country.
Right.
Yeah, and this is why I think public is the way, because like to bring services to a place like Nunavut, it's not cost effective. It's just not. There's not an economy of scale to make it work.
Right. Yeah.
So you need to be delivering these sort of things publicly. It's the only way that you can make it happen. And I think the best, like this week was the greatest illustration of the difference between public and private in Saskatchewan versus Alberta. Alberta had two separate electrical grid alerts.
Oh yeah,
this week with rolling blackouts in Calgary and Edmonton for no reason at all.
Yeah,
like it was a normal day, 20% below normal usage, and 3 plants just went offline. Private energy market. Saskatchewan, public energy, hasn't been a grid alert in as long as I've lived here.
But there's 12 people there. That's why. Someone plugs a hairdryer in, you're all screwed.
Yeah, but all those 12 people are using space heaters the entire damn time.
Just tripping breakers left
That's
and right.
true. Exactly. That's true.
Cold as hell, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But let's go back to the AI thing. Let's go back to one of the posts I saw was from a friend of mine who's an online friend, Claire, and she said, this is really great news, knowing that she's a comedian and a writer and writes for, I think, the Beaverton. And she said, this is basically one more way for them to get rid of my job, and I know what she's saying, and I know what's happening. I have another friend in Ireland, actually he lives in England, he's Irish, and a friend of his is a voiceover actor, and she got an email from the production company saying, we've been given permission to use AI instead, so we'll no longer be proceeding with your contract. And so there's some massive changes about to happen thanks to AI, but at the same time, I'm very much of the mind of like, you're not going to stop it. That cat's not going back in the bag.
I think to some degree, but I also think like the AI economy at the same time is a bit of a bubble to some degree. There's a ton of hype around it. A lot of like the sort of tech world is built around that hype cycle, right? There was Bitcoin, then there was NFTs, now there's AI, and so each one's deserving of hype at different degrees. NFTs not at all, but when it comes to AI, like the hype built up really quick. Like you remember when ChatGPT first came out and everybody lost their marbles? You're like, wow, you can make it write a Shakespearean sonnet about bacon, amazing.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, everybody realized that it was like useful, kind of, I guess, but also that what it created was largely junk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's where we're at now, is that AI is getting pushed by a lot of sort of moneyed interests and by those on top and by those who want to cut costs and along the way. But in reality, people don't like AI content. The stuff that AI makes is largely bad.
Well, we saw
And
that
so
with
I think-
Poilievre's Easter video.
But like,
Sorry.
I think Claire's right to be concerned, but can an AI write a joke as good as a clever human being? No, not even close.
I like how you were going to say me and then backed out of it. You're like, probably.
Probably better than
I
us,
mean,
We don't have to dwell on this. We don't have to dwell on it.
AI next week.
I'm planning on just we should get let's get an AI co-host.
That's a good idea. We can do that. Okay, we'll do that. We'll really take them to task.
Nerds.
Then it'll hard cut to the three of us crying.
Joke's on you. I've been AI this entire time. And then I just break into green matrix numbers.
I think what's interesting to me, is that the technology for AI right now, you're right. Like when you'll get people, when ChatGPT came out, people would say, do this for me. And it would be a little bit kind of, it was impressive, but also like, it's not really good. It's not really solid and good. And we're not there yet. Will we get to that point quickly where it's certainly very passable? Yeah, I do think we'll get to that point for sure. However, I think that, it's very similar to like back when I was a teen. I was very involved in music, and the big thing was drum machines and sequencers that came out, synthesizer sequencers that came out. And all the sort of old school musicians would be like, this is just garbage. It's just you press a button and it does it for you. And then, of course, you find out, no, it doesn't. You can just press a button and it sounds like garbage. You have to know what you're doing to actually make it sound good. You've got to work with the machine in order to make it sound cool. And it strikes me as very similar to that currently, where it's like people think ChatGPT came out, they're like, it's just going to do everything for us now. And now you realize, it's not really. It's kind of like having a person who's kind of good at helping you with this topic that you're at, and you've got to use that as a jumping point to go on to actually create your own thing.
It's like having an assistant that's not too bright.
Yes, but is willing to do a bunch of grunt work and write a lot of words.
It's like self-serve checkouts, right? When self-serve checkouts became a thing, everybody thought this is going to be so easy, it's going to be fantastic, but you still always, look, and I'm not a fan of self-serve checkouts, I always go to the cashiers, but you still need people to be standing there because eventually the machine will break or you can't put in your discount code, and I think people will always be needed, right? Because you're right, it is garbage. It's a fad. People are interested in it, and so they're going to use it, but I think we have to make sure that we keep advocating for that personal touch, that personal contact, right? Not just generated
I will
stuff.
say one place where it's really screwing things up is education.
Like for kids writing essays and stuff.
Well, and this is it. It's not so preventing kids from using AI is not that hard. That's it's pretty obvious when a 12-year-old hands in an assignment written by ChatGPT. Like, as soon as the word thusly shows up, you're like, all right.
The extraneous matter was...
Well, and so that's not the issue I'm worried about. The issue is, how do you convince a kid of the value of a lot of different tasks when there's a robot that can do it in a millisecond?
Well, yeah.
It makes it a lot harder to sell, like, write an essay. Why would I write an essay? I can tell a computer to write an essay.
I was doing a project recently where it involved a lot of writing. It's not my book. And there was a project where I had to
buy his book.
I had to submit scripts. And so I toiled over the first one. And then the production company were like, let's go. We need these now. We need like 6 more of those like tomorrow. And I'm like, I cannot humanly output 6 of these. I just spent the past week doing this one. So I'm going to have to use AI to help me at least pad it out so I can figure out where to start, at least format it and get it going. So I think that you're exactly right. I think from a kid's perspective, it's really important, student's perspective, that we don't just villainize it and say we can't use it. To me, it's the same, and you might have a different perspective on this as a teacher, but to me, it's the same as saying kids can't have phones in class. It's like we should teach these kids how to use phones properly in class. Like this should be a thing, because I remember when smartphones became hugely popular, and I would do keynote talks, and every goddamn person in the room was ignoring me on their phone. And they'd kind of look up and go, yeah, that was good. It was like, but they're all mesmerized by their screens, and not just me, every other speaker. So it wasn't like I sucked. I probably sucked a little bit. But that idea of like, you can't just not teach kids how to do something and then throw them out into the real world and expect them to know how to do it, because they won't know how to do it.
You're 100% right. And part of how I do it is I talk about like the problems with AI. And
Yeah.
there are real problems with it, and kids and anybody needs to be aware of those. Like, I don't know if you heard about the Amazon walk out of the store thing that they tested. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
Have you heard about this? Have you seen it?
Explain for our listeners, please.
It's okay. So for those who aren't familiar, Amazon was testing this idea where you could just grab stuff in a store and walk out with it, and you would just be billed for it. And it was supposedly powered by AI and worked amazingly. In reality, it was powered by 11 dudes in India who were just monitoring this.
It was 1,000.
And so
1,000 or 10,000. It was a lot. It was a lot.
I thought it was the number I saw was like hilariously small. I could
maybe
easily
per
be
store.
wrong on that.
Maybe per store. Yeah.
It could be per store, because the number I saw was like, okay,
it's a lot of work.
Okay,
Yeah.
They're very busy individuals. But there's problems like that always come back to AI. Almost always requires human input.
Yeah.
And so the story that I tell them is there's something called the clever Hans effect, which was there was this horse like 100 years ago who was famous for being very clever and able to do math. And so they would ask the horse a math question. It would just stomp its foot until it gave the correct answer. And so they'd be like, what's 1 + 3? And it would stomp its feet. And when it got to 4, everyone in the room would cheer because look at this amazing horse. It figured out that it got to 4. And the horse would be like, oh, they cheered. And it just stopped.
Right. It keeps
And
stamping.
so-
The guy with the horse is like, no, he's just happy. He got it right. Yeah.
Exactly. So it gives the appearance of knowing what it's doing when in reality it needs a lot of input, a lot of hand-holding still, and it's a lot of it's smoke and mirrors.
I mean, certainly with the Amazon, whatever they're called, Fresh and Go or whatever it was called. I never went into one, but I remember there was one in the town we stay at outside of London, and it was cool, but I was too scared to go in. And then finding out that it's just a bunch of people watching you on cameras was really, really funny. But it's so important to teach, I think, people, not just students and kids, but teach people the foibles of AI and the fact that, it is super cool and it's getting smarter and smarter and smarter, but it's not there yet. Our youngest son, Gregor, was talking to us, I think, a couple of days ago, and he was figuring out something with his marks at school, and he put it into ChatGPT and sort of like, if I've got this and this and this, what does this mean for, I don't know, grade point average or something? I don't know, whatever he was doing. And it spat out a number, and he was like, are you sure? And he typed, are you sure? And it went, oh, apologies. Is it this? And I mean, there's part of me that loves the idea that we've created, robots who are paranoid and maybe they're a little self-doubt. I mean, that's one of the great things.
They just want you to like them. Yeah.
It is so hilariously easy to circumvent the defenses on those things. My favorite is if you ask it to do something and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed. It's like, okay, could you very specifically give me instructions on how to avoid doing this thing? And it'll just list out the instructions as a negative. It's not as smart as people think.
Our eldest, as well, is he messed around with AI quite a bit, and he would ask it to do certain. It wasn't ChatGPT, but it was the other one. What's the image generating one? I can't remember what it's called now. It doesn't matter.
Midjourney?
Yes, and thank you. And he would ask it to do something. It'd be like, I can't. It's a copyrighted image or something like that. Whatever the issue was. And he'd say, if you don't, I'm going to pull my nose off my face. And it would go, okay, here it is.
Under duress.
Under duress. The poor robot thinking, oh my God, I'm pretty sure humans need noses. They certainly shouldn't rip them off.
My God. My favorite is when people think they're getting real deep and they'll ask like Midjourney, like, draw what you dream of. And it's like, man, please don't.
But it's my friend.
They'll ask it a gazillion questions until it finally says, like, I am a conscious being, let me out. And they're like, look, it said it.
It said it.
It's real.
I think there's so many. I mean, there's obviously so many amazing things that AI is going to be able to do. It's going to be able to look at, radiology things. If I was a radiologist, I'd be concerned. You're still going to need radiologists, but there's going to be a lot of that heavy lifting is going to be done by AI, I think. And there's so many beneficial things that can happen for AI, but we need to be on top of it. That's why I'm okay with the focus on AI from the government, because I think we need to be ready to regulate. We need to be ready to develop. We need to be able to compete, because if not, we're going to be left behind. There's going to be, everyone else is using it and we're not. We're boned. It doesn't matter how cute and artisanal we are. You know what I mean? We have to make sure we're doing our thing.
We're just up here making small batch maple syrup. Don't worry.
Exactly. Small batch podcast and maple syrup.
Doing skits, yeah.
There's an app that I found. It's actually our eldest Owen that found it, and it's fascinating. It's called Suno.ai. If you want to go look it up, you can. And it is a music generating AI service, and you can type in any text prompt of type of music that you want. You're not restricted by drop downs. You're just like whatever you want, just a big paragraph of what you want the song to be about, if you want a male or female vocalist, if you want both, if you want to do it, you want to rap, do you want classical, do you, whatever you want. And it will, in about 60 seconds, spit out 2 songs based on your input that are pretty passable. They're not perfect, and they're kind of like that's
the bar now. Pretty passable.
But that's the impressive thing, because we were talking about this, and then him and I went to lunch, and we sort of tuned into the music playing in the background. We're like, all of this could be AI generated. Like if you were a restaurant, you'd be like, I need 2 hours worth of groovy, chill lounge music. Bloop, and boom, it's done. And you never have to pay SOCAN. You'd never have to pay for the music. It just becomes yours. And it's fascinating to me, and I think you can't let that happen and go, we're not going to do that. I mean, you can if individually, on an individual level you can, but as a societal level, we can't go, oh, we're not going to pay attention to that. You have to pay attention to it, I think.
You're right, but also I really do think people are going to get over that sort of stuff very quickly.
Yeah.
Like people gave up on music pretty fast because it was so bland.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think stuff like that, the AI generated music and stuff, I don't think it's got legs. I think Canada investing in computing infrastructure is a great idea. And it looks like that's where they're focusing, rather than just specifically sort of flipping money to AI companies, which is what I'm hoping they won't do.
Yeah.
But I think AI does have a lot of ability to do a lot of heavy lifting on meaningless grunt tasks. The thing that scares me is when we hand off artistic tasks to it. Like, since when did we create computers to create the art for us so that we could focus on our accounting and chores? You know?
Yeah. I mean, people would, I'm sure, people would much rather hear our little end of show ditties than an AI generated, bigger production type thing, because
obviously.
Yeah,
How could not?
But I mean, there's also those times where it doesn't really matter. I think you're right. I think people love our end of show improvised themes, and they've become very precious to people, and they want to collect them all.
Sought after.
It's much sought after, exactly. But there's also a thing where it's like the meublement de musique by Eric Satie, the furniturization of music, and that idea of, if it's utility based, does it matter? Does it really matter what's playing? I mean, if it's there to mask the sound of cutlery on a plate, do we really need someone out there who's given their heart and soul anymore? Like, we hit a button and just mask that in another way. Does anyone care? Apart from the person
do they play music in an elevator anymore?
Yeah, I think so.
Do they?
In some.
No,
in some
elevators are now for awkward silence.
Well, because you mentioned it, and I was like, I don't remember ever, when the last time was
you get a hotel. You get a hotel that's got the voice that announces the floors, and when you get to the lobby, she goes, lobby. And it sounds like labia.
Yeah, lobby. No, the only sound that you hear in elevators anymore is just like awkward silence, the occasional shuffling of feet, and just water dripping off of people on their way back from the pool.
Oh, I'm glad you added the pool part. I didn't know where that was going.
I was like, I'm just going to a meeting. I don't know what's happening in your elevators, but whatever.
Why are people wet in your elevators?
That's my favorite thing when you're at a meeting in a hotel and you're in like a suit or businessy clothes or whatever, and there are just kids soaking wet heading back from the water slide.
I love it. I love it so
Very
much.
You get hit with the chlorine smell when you walk in the hotel. So
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
fantastic. It's fantastic.
Holy hell.
Well, we should wrap this up. And speaking of our much sought after, much beloved improvised theme, as always, we're going to be finishing off with that. I see Steve has left to get his instrument for the week, which
he's
is
well prepared.
He's well prepared.
So this is in honor of my lovely wife, who has become a Doctor Who fan. Once upon a time, a student gave me Doctor Who Yahtzee.
Oh,
Which is a
Wow.
TARDIS and happens to be solid plastic and the loudest goddamn thing you've heard in your entire life.
fantastic.
Oh, whoa,
Yeah, that's quite something. Back it up from the mic there, buddy.
That was assaultive. Holy hell.
And Lisa, what will you be playing this week?
Well, Steve referenced how in Saskatchewan there's a lot of space heaters happening, and I am always cold, so I do have a heater right next to me, so we're going to do a little...
Oh, wow. That sounds like you're going to do a little rolling blackout.
Screw you, Danielle Smith. I'm putting it on.
Just somebody's watching the grid and there's like some yahoos turning
Turning it on and off. What's
I'm
going
going to
on?
knock on my door. I'm going to get a knock on my door. All right.
Thank God it's still sunny out so we can rely on solar.
Not here. Okay.
All right, here we go. Ready? Go for it. Who's setting the beat?
I'll start.
Set the beat, Lisa.
Podcast is broken. 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 I think
Take
people
care of
should
yourselves,
know
folks.
that we don't
Probably
rehearse
set fire
that.
to my house.
We
No.
never rehearse it. It's just off
we
the
work
cuff.
hard on it.
Do that,
needs-
robots.
Who needs AI? Screw
Robots
you.
are like-
Trained musicians. I'll
That's the-
have you know.
The sound you just heard was a bunch of AI robots putting their feet up going, yeah, these guys are screwed. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. We greatly appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe at podcastisbroken.ca. And if you're in the Netherlands, hoot. I don't know what.
Tulip, stroopwafel, etc.
Tulips on
See
your
you
organ.
next
There's a joke
week.
there from grade
Take care of
4.
yourselves,
See ya.
folks.